Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out to the John Wright Speaker Series this evening. My name is Jesse Iliff. If I haven't met you before, I'm Executive Director of the Severn River Association. Really appreciate you guys coming out. I wanted to do a couple of quick housekeeping notes. If you haven't already silenced or turned off a phone, please do that. There are some jugs and water glasses in the back that if somebody winds up feeling thirsty, you can take advantage of. There's bathrooms in the hallway. And we do have some papers around the room by the water, by the forsythia over here, and by the door. If you would like to leave us any feedback about tonight's presentation, there are QR codes to do that, to join the mailing list, and of course, to support Severn River Association so that we can continue to bring you top flight speakers like we have tonight. A couple of quick programmatic updates in case you don't already get our newsletter or if you didn't catch the last one. Some good news, we have been selected for Whole Watershed Act funding in the Severn River. This was a law that was passed last year. Thank you very much. And it's a new source of funding to do restoration work throughout the Severn. We were one of 5 watersheds throughout the whole state that was selected for this program, and it will be delivering millions of dollars to the Severn River for the next 5 years. So this is something that we're very excited about at Severn River Association. Several of our projects up and down the watershed are going to get funding through this mechanism. So that's a big deal. And the other big development in our shop that I'm really excited about is our newest team member, Molly, who's helping us get this situation, our situation together up here, Molly Boyd. So anyway, please do say hi maybe after we're wrapped up here. So without any further ado, I'll hand it off to Brian Gomes, our board member.
Evening, folks. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Brian Gomes. I'm the chair for the John Wright Environmental Speaker Series. Tonight, we have the pleasure of having John VanAlstine here. Talking to him earlier, know him about a decade. He is a veteran of the U.S. Navy and has been working the water full-time as a Chesapeake Bay waterman since 1994. And he is also active working in local school systems and has lots of partnerships with local environmental organizations. And without further ado, this is Captain John VanAlstine.
My wife and I live in Galesville. Now we're down in Friendship. Our mailing address is Dunkirk, which messes a lot of people up. We've got 35 acre of oyster ground in West River. We pound net fish, we crab pot, we gill net, we fyke net, we hoop net. If there's a way to catch a product on the Chesapeake Bay, we do. I've held former positions in the State Watermen's Association. I've been president and vice president of a lot of county organizations. I've helped form the Aquaculture Coordinating Council as a governor appointee, and I've sat on title advisory committees. So I have a fair background in a lot of politics. Today, I have no politic affiliation. I don't see gray. I see black and white, and politics sees too much gray. My wife and I go to work now. We don't mess in politics. We have deep convictions on what we do, what we feel is right and wrong. Our oyster ground, we're one of the only aquaculturists in Anne Arundel County that has not taken a loan or a grant. It's our business, it's not yours. So we believe that it should be done out of our own pocket. We plan on average about 10 million to 15 million spat on shell. We have a nursery permit where we actually raise the spat on shell ourselves. That came out of necessity. We're gonna go through pictures. I know it's a question answer at the end. I feed better when you have questions coming to me. So if anything comes to mind, please feel free to ask and hold. The kids steer me where I head. I can head down any number of rabbit holes. Oh, and I'm looking to touch the screen. I'm gonna touch my screen just so I can keep up. So my boat's Patricia Ann. I've owned it since I got out of the service. The neat thing about it was, I joined the service on a Thursday in December of '84. And I saw that boat being built, told my buddy I had to own it. I did. It took over 100 boats before I picked this one that we looked at from Delaware to Norfolk when I got out of the service. I didn't even recognize that was the boat. That was actually the 4th one I looked at. Wasn't going to pay the money the man wanted. I went back with a cashier's check. So Pull on out of that. So I raised a lot of kids. My granddaughter most recently is the one. You pull out and let me see the whole group. Go on up. So, oops, look, go back there. My up. Up. No, you're going faster than I do. Hip, hip. I'm pointing at the wrong screen. Go up. The other way up. There we go. That's my up. Hit her. So during COVID, this poor child was stuck with a grumpy old man. For 2 years, 11, 12-year-old got stuck on the boat 5 days a week unless Mama gave her a reprieve. That was her classroom, a tablet sitting off to the side. This was not uncommon. Every Waterman's family out there put their kids on their boat and went to work. Hopefully she's a better person for it. Go all the way to the bottom. Pull that one up. So here we might have pound netted. School didn't start until 8 o'clock. We're going in a skiff, Fat Fridge, one of my skiffs. I tie up at Discovery Village in Shadyside. I've tied up there since 1994, and I still tie there today. So we're leaving. Parish Creek is behind me. One of my pound nets was up on Saunders Point. And we're heading there. The poor child had to go bail fish, the one thing that she adores the most. I had questions with children today asking that, my heavens, that's too many fish. Everybody here is aware that the fishermen that we have in this state, which is a very small group, we have 7,400 licenses issued in this state to harvest seafood. Out of that are 4,000 plus that is an LCC, limited crab catch. They can only go crabbing and they can only use a limited amount of gear. What we have that works 12 months out of the year is about 11 to 1,200 people, men and women, that harvest the seafood that you get to eat. So when we catch the product, we're following the limits that were given by the Department of Natural Resources. Same way I talk to the kids that we're doing 55 on a road, posted 55, we're not breaking the rules. If we catch the quota that we're allowed to catch, regardless of what it looks like to a layman, we're still following the guardrails. I've done a lot of legislative work when bills have been put in. I probably spend 14 days a year on average in legislation to continue to do what I do. Some things make sense, some things don't. We tweak the laws continuously. So our rockfish have their ups and downs, as everybody knows. White perch, we're seeing less and less of them. Hardhead, 20 years ago, we used to be able to catch tons of them. They had a die-off out in the Atlantic, and they were bulldozed up on beaches. We haven't seen them in 20 years. My site on Saunders was specifically for hardhead, croaker. We haven't seen any amount of hardhead in years. There's a picture that's gonna pop up here of a sturgeon. It's this big, and that picture is probably 5 years old. I feel good because I now see fellows that fish in the same areas that have pulled sturgeon up that are twice the size. So we're seeing an increase. In my 30s, I worked with an old man in the winter to make sure that he stayed safe. Walter Irving Maddox down on the Potomac River, we anchor netted. When he was a child, they used to catch him 11 feet long. So it's a tremendous difference. Walter held a distinction. He used to be a purple sash wearer in the Nuremberg trials. So the amount of people that we have in our history that are around us that just want to talk. He talked a lot. Nobody wanted to work with him. I enjoyed it, but the stories were the same and they were amazing. So what this occupation has given me, why don't you pull this one up? Like I said, this child loves bailing fish. This is a small amount of fish. I build all of my own gear, all of my own nets. It takes me a month to build this pound net. This pound net is twice the size of this room. It has a heart that is set 84 feet long. Anybody not familiar with the pound net? We've got pictures I'll pull up. But she's actually in the crib itself, bailing the fish out. If the volume were up, she'd be hollering, "Mud shad." We use mud shad for different baits. And there's catfish in there. One of the things we never had to deal with were catfish of any amount. Today, you can't set this net without overloading it with channel catfish. The snakehead are not the problem. The channel catfish are a huge problem for our industry. They want to eat everything. In the past 5 years, our white perch industry has declined to where it's very difficult to catch any amount of white perch. All of these have management plans that the Department of Natural Resources has enacted. Pull on out of that and let's take a look at the grand scheme of things. They're an invasive species. They were introduced in Virginia as a sport fish. Yay. No. No. We have 3 different types of catfish. The blue cat, the channel cat, and the mud cat are a flathead. So those are the species that we have here. A friend of mine down on the Potomac he's supplying Safeway with them by the tonnage. It's incredible what he's been able to do. Billy Rice and Rocky Rice, his son, two wonderful people. Billy Rice used to sit on the board of directors to the Maryland Watermen's Association, and he used to chair the Potomac River Fishing Commission. For those of you that don't know, I cannot fish the entire Chesapeake Bay with one license. As a resident of the state of Maryland, I have to have a tidal fish license for the main bay and its tributaries, and I then have to have a Potomac River Fishing Commission license. I can still fish the tributaries of the Potomac that are on Maryland, but I can't fish the Potomac without a Potomac River license, and then I would need a Virginia license. Normally at this time of the year, April 1st, I would go to Point Lookout. I would take a skiff because the big boats here work in pound nets, and we're still dredging or patent tonging on our private oyster ground, so I'd take a skiff to Point Lookout, and any of you familiar with Point Lookout, it's not the place for a skiff in the spring. So we would take a 24-foot Chesapeake Classic down. That's you'll see in a few pictures here. That's what this one was. And we'll run 300 crab pots. This will be the first year in a while I haven't done that. I have a fake knee and I need a fake knee. It's the need the fake knee is what stopped me from going down there. The job is, I'm 59 years old. My wife is 66. She says I'm 80 and she's 20. It's very stressful and physical on your body. In February, we go in the woods and cut pound net poles. We're doing 30 and 40-foot poles. At the smallest butt ends of them are 9 inches. We're then going to haul them out in knee-deep water. Generally, in the spring, their woods are flooded where we're pulling them from. We're going to haul them a half a mile to a mile on our shoulders. We're then going to load them onto a truck, and then we're going to take them to Discovery Village, and I'll take all the bark off of them. I'll knot them and point them. Then we'll go out and we'll drive them by hand. And we're driving them 4 feet in hard sand bottom. If it's a mud bottom, we're pushing them 10 to 15 feet into it. The fun isn't driving them, the fun is pulling them. Any waterman worth his salt's not going to lose a sight because a pole broke. Every pole that's ever broken, I've gone down and pulled everything I could, or I've gone overboard with its all and cut it off flush at the bottom. It'll destroy a sight to have anything else sitting underneath it there that'll flare the fish off. My pound nets, pull out of that and let me look at the hole. Here's a small one. I'm pointing the wrong way here. This is a small pound net. That's actually one on Saunders. So when I refer to the heart, yes, sir. Could you explain the setup? Yes, sir. So I referred to a heart more than once. Can everybody see this pole? And there's a sister pole right over here. This picture's not the best. As I go through, you'll see it. But this pole makes a heart and comes back. There's one on the other side that you can't really see it. It comes back into this funnel. Can everybody see this little funnel? That goes into the net by 6 feet. This is all sticking out of the net. Then the leader goes to shore, and I think I was drunk when I drove those poles. To leave an abandoned pole, it'll flare the fish off. They're coming down this shoreline and hitting this leader and going to deep water to escape. This is the deepest spot in this slough. This slate I picked out 30 years ago. It's 2 feet over here, and it's 4 feet over here, but right here it's 8 feet. Those fish come down that shoreline to that deep trough and go down to the bottom. That is one of my best sites I've ever had. Because of my physical ability, I've actually sold this site to Captain Pat Mahoney, Wild Country Seafood out of Eastport, down off of 2nd Street. So any of you guys know him there, you should see that he's got a ton of white perch on sale right now. They're coming out of this net. I have 2 more sites outside of this and down below it, and then up in the creek that I maintain that I haven't sold. So when I do go back into fishing the nets again, I'll still have my sites. But my bread and butter for years was this one site, and as you'll see, Captain Pat is using it as his bread and butter today. It's a good net site.
So then the pole that you have is lined up with the shoreline?
Yes.
And there's a net that comes
There's a net that comes all the way out, and that pop out. No, you stay right there. Let me look in this one real quick. I think I have a better picture of it from a different angle.
So you rent the rights to that?
I can't deviate this 10 feet in any direction. Can't. I've signed with the state of Maryland, requested this site, they've approved it, and now it's mine. It's mine forever. Until my license is sold. When my license is sold, it goes with the license, or it gets abolished. So I'm gonna jump around a little bit on you on your explanation. This picture right here It is. It's at the top. It's at the top left. Right there. This is just the funnel that's coming into the crib. So here's the crib that I'm making. Here's the funnel sticking in. That's 3 foot by 3 foot. That's 12 foot by 12 foot. Those hearts I referred to, I actually sew down this and sew down the other side and pull them out to make the heart. So is everybody with me that we're actually making a net that, like this, that sews to this funnel going into the net. This net makes a box that you see here. That just makes a box. I told her to put me in the box. She got me, and I couldn't stay in it. So that where that heart poles start can't be 1 foot in or 1 foot out from the head pole that goes to shore. If the head pole sticks in or sticks out, the net won't work. If it sticks in or out a foot, it won't work. The fish are coming down that line, going into the heart basin, going to the net to follow it around, to go over to the other side, follow. They're following it. If that piece sticks in, they'll hit it and go out. If it's not there, they'll swim right out. All right? This isn't a piece of equipment that is the end all to beat all. It is not going to keep a fish in there forever. If it's a rockfish, he'll be out in a day. If it's a white perch, he'll be out in 2 days. If it's an LY, he's not getting out until tomorrow morning when the cormorants come eat them all. If we don't get to these nets before sunrise, we'll lose 100 bushel an hour. Cormorants, 100 bushel an hour. Next time you're in Captain Pat's shop, ask him if he got to the net before sunrise. He can literally lose the whole bait, the whole net of bait, or the whole bet of perch or spot or whatever we might be catching depending on the year. We have a giant bird feeder. And anybody that says otherwise, I don't know how the cormorants survive without us. There's only 19 people in the state of Maryland that still fish this way. Only 19 people in the state of Maryland that still fish this way. You all eat crabs? Our crab bait comes from this. Go to, I push buttons I wasn't supposed to on this one. Yes? It's not baited at all. It's habit. It's knowing the habit of these creatures we're catching. They're going to deep water to escape. So when they hit that leader, they're going to deep water. Go to a totally different, go to old school or school, whatever this one's not. This is new school, just go to school. And just slowly go up. Yeah. And you folks tell me if I'm relying too much on the photographs to share with you. I find that keep going up. So you can pull that one up for a second. I'm in the basement building a net. This is just one piece of it. It'll take me 30 days to build the net. It's a mathematic problem. When I talk to children, I show them how important math is in with everything we do. I'm hanging this net on a third. So it's a mathematical equation for every 12 foot for whatever size mesh it is. My gill nets that we're going to set that the fish are going to swim into, it's going to be hung on a half. It's going to be baggier, so it does gill. I don't want this to gill. By state law, it's got to be a certain size twine to stop it from gilling. I think the size twine is a number 12 twine. Everything I'm using here is a 21 or a 24, way bigger than the law requires. Yes? A gill net is a fish designed for the fish to swim into it. His nose goes through and stops right behind his gill. So when I pull the net in, it's not indiscriminately catching. Which one are you in? He can't back out, but I'm catching a specific size. If I want a 9-inch white perch, I'm going to set a 3 1/4 inch mesh net, and I'm going to get that specific size fish. Slow down. Going up again. I have a picture, keep going. I have a picture just right here. Pull this one up. That's Captain Eddie Howe's wife, Christine. For those of you that don't think ladies work this is Christine Howe's. She's pulling gill net. That's a success in the springtime. She probably has 400 pounds of fish in a 1,200-foot piece of gill net. We set those. We have laws and limitations on how and where they can be used. We can't block off creeks. There's a million laws that go with it. Do you see any other species in that net? It's a white perch. If I've got to pick out a rockfish, I'm losing money and I'm killing next year's paycheck. The size net that's going to catch if it's a rockfish is going to destroy my industry down the road. I want to continue to work, so I don't want to catch it. Plus, I have to physically pick every fish that's in that net out. That can be hours. Okay. 1994, we were losing money crabbing. There were no crabs. I went gill netting in August. I went gill netting in August for spot. I was catching 300 to 900 pounds of spot a night. I would go in at the flood tide of the evening at dark, and I would pull it at the last ebb tide in the morning before the trot liners came out. All the trot liners I was trying to encourage to come, they're catching a half a bushel of crabs. In the 90s, we had a huge problem with the crabs. I went gill netting. I was getting 65 cents a pound. I was catching 300 to 900 pounds a night, 6 nights a week. And the 8th day, when I come back after being off the 7th day, I had to go find the fish again. Once you're on them, you can follow their habit through the river. This is in the summertime where we would have had to deal with crabs, jellyfish, the heat. I would take a ton of ice, and that's not figuratively. I would take 1 ton of ice just to ice the nets down on the boat. I would use short shots of net that were 300 foot long, multiple boxes, and set them out and retrieve them continuously, one right after the other, and pull them in. And that summer, we supplied a tremendous amount of spot to the commercial market. Yes, sir.
Which species is most profitable?
Rockfish sucks. A rockfish, you make money. The problem is I have to call the state of Maryland before I leave the dock. I have to tell them where I'm going. When I get to the net, I have to tag every fish. New school. I have to tag every fish. You're going to see my granddaughter tagging a fish on this side of the screen. I have to tag every fish. Keep going down. She's real pronounced. Keep going. I lied. It's not in that one. Pick another school. Nope, there it is. Right there on the left. I got to tag every fish that we catch with a tag on the net, tied to the net. When I get ready to leave the net, I got to call the state again and say I'm leaving and what landing I'm going to and how many fish do I have on the boat and what's the estimated weight. Once I get to the landing, I have to call the state again and tell them where I'm taking that fish to physically check it in. I hate rockfish. White perch, I can catch them all day long and nobody cares. A spot, I can catch them all day long and nobody cares. Yes, sir. No, yellow perch is another problematic fish. It's all based on management. And for those of you that don't realize, we don't own the rockfish as the state of Maryland. The Atlanta State Marine Fishing Council owns the rockfish. That's all our coastal states. They tell us how many pounds we can catch. Then it's up to us to decide what we do with it. Now, in the room, a quick show of hands. If we're given 100%, how much of that, how many folks think that the recreation get less of that percentage of fish? How many people think the recreational public gets more than half of that fish? They do. 52% of the quota that's given to the state of Maryland goes to recreation. 48% of that quota goes to the commercial fishing, and we are hell-bent accountable for every pound that we catch. Years ago, there was a poaching going on, gill netting, where they were leaving them out in the bay. Anybody remember the big to-do about that? The Baltimore senator tried to put a bill in that I worked with for years, and she wanted to ban all gill nets. I had young customers that wanted cheap protein, white perch, and she was trying to take away my ability to catch a cheap fish because we had bad apples in our group that left anchor nets. Even though those nets were left, the fish that they estimated were taken in those nets were taken from the rest of the commercial fishing population, quota for quota. So it is highly managed. And when it wasn't, when the state allowed tags to get out of their control years back, 11 men in my community went to federal jail for a year. So it's not played with. And at that point, the tags were it. And as long as the state's given me tags, the boys were catching fish. So there was a management team that needed to be strengthened there, and it has been. Everything we do, there's no perfect mousetrap. If you tell me I can catch something, I'm going to try every way I can until we realize this is a poor way to catch them. We're doing something. It's my job to figure out how to catch them, to be very efficient at it. The more efficient I am, the cheaper your product is. There was a question over here. Yes, sir. Pop out of that and go to school, school, just school, just school, just school. This one. My granddaughter, a little bit younger. Those are all Manhattan, all LY. Right now, Captain Eddie Howes, Captain Pat Mahoney, both put 150 bushel of LY in their walk-in box. Without these in our walk-in box, we have no crab bait. They went from being $8 a flat to being this year, they're going to be pushing $50 a flat. I'm going to go through 6 to 8 flats a day, plus clams on top of that. The state of Maryland's man-hating fishing practices is this piece of equipment and limited amount of gill netters that do it. Nobody wants to catch these in a gill net in the state of Maryland. In Virginia, they'll use them offshore and in, but they use monofilament. Easy to shake them out. We have to use multi-monofilament line net. They get in, they're not coming out. You got to hand shove everyone out. The monofilament that they use on reels, you can shake them and they come out and they'll come in with boats. For us, it's not practical with the type of gear. Our fishery is strictly a bait fishery. It's not going to cosmetics. It's not going to other things. So without this fishery, 19 licenses that is doing this type of fishing, and mine included, and I haven't set a net this year. So we got 18 that are probably actually it's probably less that's actively fishing. They're supplying our bait for this state.
So
There's quite a controversy about everything I do in the world. We're in front of God and country when we're out there, and it just takes a few bad apples to take my profession, which I feel is a pretty noble profession. Matter of fact, the state of Maryland, there's a tobacco farmer on one side of our crest and a fisherman on the other. Somebody at one point thought it was a noble profession.
But the fact that we will seems to have
They do, and I have no say in what the state of Virginia does. I have zero say in this state what the state of Virginia does. I have no say what the Potomac River Fishing Commission does. I have every say in what we do in Maryland. Maryland, we do not have a purse seine industry. We do not have spotter planes. Now, to take that away, how many families are you going to be hurting down there? So it's not just the fishery, it's also the families. A lot of the markets that go with all that. Do I think it's good? No. When they brought it on, I argued against it tooth and nail, and I was at our legislators and I was at our Washington, D.C. arguing against it. They should not have done it. Once they gave them a quota and they said they can keep that cap, that was it. So it's not in our hands as an outsider to the state of Virginia to say that it is as a fisherman. Do I agree with it? No. In our state, I'm out of business as a crabber without this bait on a pound net fishery. And we're held accountable. We're going to hit a season because here again, the state of Maryland is told from higher up how much we can still catch on this. We're going to hit a threshold because all this is reported as well. There's nothing I don't catch that hasn't been reported. And we can be checked at any given point. Menhaden are very important to every one of us watermen in the state of Maryland as a bait fishery. Pull on out of that. Now this net, if any of you are familiar with West River, it's up in Popham Creek. So if you head in West River, number 4 day markers right in front of you, it's a creek on the corner. I think I talked with you about rivers not being big enough. This creek is 600 feet across. That's a 200-foot net. We can't cross more than 1/3 of any creek or river. Those fish can still get around. We are not stopping the entire population. We do it. And what I don't want in this net that the birds don't eat, I dump back overboard, alive and swimming. I put $3,000 of copper paint on that net twice a year. It's not cheap. That's $10,000 worth of net. It's not cheap. That's $1,500 in labor to cut the poles, to drive, to put. That's not driving them, that's cutting them. It's a very costly endeavor. We're getting stolen. We got kids out there that think it's great to fish that net. Yay, middle of the night, we've caught them. We've caught charter boat captains back right up to it, throwing their party's crew into it, thrown out of court with photographs. They physically did not see the fish being hooked. I sent 2 children to a hospital for people fishing in my gear. I'd like to see these things banned in the state of Maryland. It's a fishing lure. My children go to the hospital fishing my family's equipment over recreational gear that's fished inside of my net. I shouldn't have to worry about pulling that net up to fish it with somebody else poaching my net. So we have our issues as well. For those that think it's a navigational hazard, the state of Maryland will tell you where every one of them is. They'll tell you whether they're active, they'll tell you whether they're not active. If you have a radar on your boat, the biggest picture in the world is that net. Yes, sir. I'm hard of hearing, sir.
Would that be considered piracy? Because there was a situation in Maine where a Maine lobsterman shot a guy and got off basically saying that guy was a pirate. And that's quite a long.
A unique thing about weapons on our boats. because of the oyster wars where the watermen were shooting back at authority, I have a carry permit. I'm holding thousands of dollars and going to Temple Hill delivering fish, and I'm stepping out. I personally do not agree with that I have to conceal it. When I stepped out of that truck, I want the people that are going to hurt me to realize it's not going to be, here's your money. They're going to hand me $5,000 in cash for the crab or fish I deliver in Temple Hills. For those of you that don't know where that is, it's right outside of DC. It is not a pretty place. When it comes to an oyster boat, the only weapon that's allowed on a dredge boat in the state of Maryland is a 10 gauge and 4 rounds, so we can't fight back. When I renewed my carry permits, that we got them years ago when you had to be a business to own them for just what I described, that we're handling large sums of money. They never pointed it out. When I renewed it here recently, they said, you are aware of this particular law that goes back to the oyster wars itself. Well, no. Any questions on pound netting? Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
So it's good by sort of
I've never seen a depletion in them. The person that tells me we don't have them, I don't believe they know what's in the water. That's my personal observation for what I see on a day in and day out. There's not a day I can't back into a small creek where I used to tie up and hit my throttle and LY go everywhere in a mud hole. There isn't a time I don't lay a net that I'm worried about catching LY. There's not a time that I can't go across and look at my color fish finder on the bottom and tell that there's LY everywhere. I'm not saying that science isn't right. I'm saying my personal experience is I see plenty of the bait. If you want to save the LY, get rid of the cormorants. It's amazing, 100 bushel an hour, whether it's the small ones or the bigger. It's incredible. Yes, sir. No, in the winter months, we don't catch them. They do migrate. From the spring right on to the late fall, we're going to have them continuously. And if we don't have them, they're going to be up in those creeks like I discussed. The primary ones we catch right now are in the springs, the big loads. This net will catch 6, 7, 8 bushel all summer long. In the fall, it will pick back up. In the spring, it's going to catch more than the boat can carry to go back into the shore. Captain Pat today stopped. I sold him one of the old boats that I used to fish this with, and he had a limit on it. And I said, you could have put a few more on there. He said, no. I said, yeah, you could have put. So we're going to push all of our boats to the limit on what we can catch. So he's going to take about 100 bushel a day, put them in his freezer and freeze them. He'll sell some, and he'll keep some. Yes, sir. No? Yes, sir.
So is there no alternate bait?
There are. Yeah. Yeah, razor clam. Razor clams last year, well, I've spent as much as $70,000 in razor clams. Thank you. At the time, these were $8 a flat. I also bought those. In the spring of the year, I need razors. In the fall of the year, I need razors. In the summer, I don't want a razor. It won't stay alive. It'll be gone within an hour. Even the bait, the Manhattan, within 2 to 3 hours, that crab pot's not catching anymore. So they will jam them bait wells full. I tease the kids all the time. I have a tuna fish sandwich sitting on the dash of my truck from yesterday. Anybody want it? If I leave that bait in there any period of time, those crab pots stop catching. Not necessarily eating it. It's old. It's stale. It doesn't smell nice. You know, crab does not want something dirty and nasty. A catfish will eat anything. Crab's very finicky. Catfish are eating everything. They're not indiscriminate. I could put a 4-year-old child out there. I think they'd eat it. All catfish, but we have some that are more problematic than the others. The blue cats and the channel cats, I mean, they're a big fish. They taste good. You know, I think our government recommends to limit how much you eat. We try not to sell the big ones. We try to go for the small ones that we can fillet off and get a pound fillet. The bigger they are, you run into problems with heavy metals. You run into that with any species of fish here in the Chesapeake Bay. The blue cat is not a bottom dweller. He's a prey. He's a wolf. He's in the middle. He's hunting. He's not just slurping everything up. He is a attack fish. He's a top predator. A lot of concern over the, oh my heavens, I'm losing my mind here. The snakehead. I could care less about a snakehead. They're eating frogs. Yeah, they're not the problem that we have down on the main part of the Chesapeake Bay. The kids are killing them like crazy with bows. I was buying some from a boy because I'm not going out at 2 o'clock in the morning to kill them with the bow. That's the most productive way. So I was buying them from him. He had a license. He liked going out at night, and I would fillet them and process them and sell them. I could sell those more than rockfish. They taste better than a rockfish. There's just not enough of them. We're being successful in what we're doing and knocking the population down. So you'll hear a lot of discussion that we should let them go back. It's a good, no, they need to go because they don't belong, but they are a delicious fish. And they could outpace a rockfish as far as price and flavor. So ignore what people call stuff. I mean, I sell muskrat by the hundreds. I take that back. We're starting to lose because my clientele is dying off and the new folks aren't eating them. So it used to be that the pelts we would make money off of, at their peak, they were $9 a pelt. I was making $5.50 for a carcass. And then the pelts dropped down to where the buyers didn't want them in the spring of the year. And my last friend that used to eat 300 of them in a year, he died. I stopped catching them. You know, so there's still a small market for things like that. We do catch every species that's in the Chesapeake Bay that we can make $1 off of. We are a hunter-gatherer. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yes, sir. I've crabbed up at the canal at the Susquehanna Flats. I've hand-togged upriver on the chop tank above Cambridge. I crab pot as far south as the Potomac River. I haul seined in the tributaries of the Potomac River. If there's a place to catch something and I don't have it here, I'll be there. I've hand-tongued in Eastern Bay. It just depends on where the product is. I've been in the Chester River working. You know, it's my local territory is going to be below the bridge and above Deal on this side of the bay when it comes to day in and day out work, mostly the West River, Galesville area. I feel most comfortable there. When we brought up the fact of the bow fishermen, since COVID, we've got what's called COVID watermen. Everybody had money, they had boats. It was so bad during COVID, we couldn't buy an outboard. There was none left, everybody bought them. I mean, flat out couldn't get them. Our biggest problem now is we've got fyke nets that are set on the shoreline. Go back to, go up and down, it might be on here. Keep going. I'll go the other direction just before I leave this one. Keep going. Keep going. All right, go back to school 3. And whoa, Nelly. What was that? That was old school? Or that was just school? All right, so go down. And I apologize about taking my time, but I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. Keep going down. It's in this area here. Keep going. Keep going. Hold it there. I'm not going to jump around to find it. A fyke net is a stationary piece of gear that's used very specifically in the spring for white perch and yellow perch. It's something that's going to look like a pound net, just as much smaller scale. It's going to have hoops and a frame and a leader that goes on. The bow fishermen are coming in there and destroyed everyone in every creek that we've got. Every fisherman, they're over $1,000 to $1,500 a piece. Every fisherman that are fishing them right now this past week that was so pretty, they've been destroyed, every one of them. That's my gear to supply food to the public and put food on them. They ripped the nets apart, they put knives in them, they pulled them up and bent the frames. On purpose, there's no question. We have people, a whole new generation of people that are out there, and the best of our knowledge are the bow fishermen that are around all your shorelines. They're out there all night long. They're hitting every creek and crevice. You would never know it was there unless you were right on top of these nets. We intentionally put them down to where they're hard to see. For one, we don't want to be an eyesore. And once again, everything we do is an argument. We're legally fishing our gear. Every fyke net, there was 22 of them in the Western Road River, were destroyed in the past week. That's 3 separate families that were put out of work.
Do they fish with lights with the bow hunting?
They do. Mm-hmm.
So you can see them snakehead?
Bowhead snakeheads, yes. But what I was alluding to is since COVID came in, we've got a whole generation now of watermen that aren't watermen. They're carpenters and electricians that have gotten into the industry and don't have the same respect for other people's equipment. And then when they decide they're not making enough money here, they'll go ahead and go back to their other occupations. It's been a huge problem for us. I lose 1/3 of my crab pots a year. They're 50 to the buoys being cut, the pots being crushed, attrition, 2 to 3 years, and it's straight up theft. I've set 50 pots on Saunders. today and gone back tomorrow, and 50 brand new pots are gone. I've intermixed brand new pots with old pots. A week later, all the old pots are there and the new pots aren't. We're running into a huge problem. At $55 a trap, it's not an inexpensive proposition. As a crab potter, I need to fish 300 pots a day to be profitable. So I'm going to have 600 in the water if I'm working 2 days of, every other day. I'm going to have 900 in the water if I'm trying to work 7 days a week or 6 days a week on that. Yes, sir. No, it's a lack of morality, in my opinion. NRP cannot be there every day. We have photographs of people, charter boats backed up to our nets, and it gets thrown out of court. So it's not a lack of NRP. It's a lack of morality in our society today, as I see it. We put gear in the water. When I yellow perch fish using pots in the upper Patuxent River, Mattaponi, Hall Creek, I'll go into the small creeks, and I take something that looks like a crab pot. It's got one funnel hole on it. Yellow perch migrates in the deepest trench of the creek. My pot has to physically be in that. There is no bait. It's got to hit a hole this big. I'll grab 3 of them, hold them together, and drop all 3 with the holes pointing downstream in where I feel the fish are going to migrate. You pull it and drop it. That whole line doesn't work anymore. I've actually had park rangers feel that they had the right to pull them to inspect and show other people. It's a lack of morality. So it is not, and that's why I second guess what I'm doing as a profession. We're talking $60,000 and $70,000 worth of crab pots to have a regular rig to go, on top of a boat that I put $10,000 of maintenance in a year. It's not inexpensive. We're talking 20 years ago, a new 220 horsepower engine for my boat was $15,000. Today it's $70,000. We talk about a fiberglass boat, we're talking $150,000. The return for a younger person getting into this industry is just not there. So it has its ups and it has its downs. Can somebody please tell me the time? I've got other things I'd like to talk about, and I don't want to. What is it? 7. And what are we supposed to talk to? Okay. And I'll talk as long as you want, but I don't want to run over. Yes, sir.
What kind of commercial activity is
The Severn for years has been a sanctuary. I brought this in. I show this to the kids all the time. So when Barbara McCoskey found some crab disaster money years ago in the early 2000s, they put a lot of legislation on the crabs. The same time I told you I was giving that. And she figured, no, we're going to get these watermen working. So she found $3 million, and she hired the Oyster Recovery Partnership to manage a dredging program. So in your river, if you look at the background, that's the Route 50 bridge. This photograph my father took, that's me in the orange shirt in the middle. My father took from the old 450 bridge. Yes, please pass it around. There's always a smart person amongst us. We were hired to dredge from that cliff to bring the shell up to move it across. That river has been a sanctuary for oyster for 85 years. The oysters grown out of the water yet? Hope goes a long way with the Susquehanna River dumping sediment in. I have 35-acre oyster ground. If I do not work it, it's lost. I'm not a fan of sanctuaries. They harbor disease, and when that disease dies, that animal that's got dermo dies, it goes in the water column to my private oyster ground. I have $250,000 overboard at any given time. I have 2 sanctuaries in Galesville upriver of me that's got old animals. They live, but the day they die, that dermo goes in the water column and I'm suffering from it. I have $250,000 in the West River. I plant 10 to 15 million of spat on shell every year. We go through a lot of larvae. We spend, my wife and I, over $50,000 a year. Our biggest problem there is theft. And it's not the casual recreational harvester. There, I just want to scare them and explain to them the facts of life. We're losing, Captain Pat Mahoney lost 500 bushel in the month of February last year. That's $50,000. Yes, sir. Nope, ma'am. I grow it. No, I don't use 1 point. I don't use 1 point for this reason. It's an education facility. They should not be in production. I have a high moral standing on what I believe and what I don't believe. My family does not take loans and grants. It's our business. It's not yours. It's either business or not. It shouldn't be subsidized. That hatchery is a school. I want the private industries where I'm going to buy it from, or I'm going to buy it from a state agency, the Piney Point. I will buy it from Piney Point because the state is in that market. What I want to see out of an educational group, I want to see different substrates. I want to see what's a better way to handle, what's a better practice to plant them. I don't want them in production. So I'm in production. Learn off of mine. We had a huge freshet a handful of years back. The salinity in West River was 1 part per 1,000. They wanted to refuse. We used to buy from them. They wanted to refuse selling us the larvae. Why? Well, it won't live. Do you have the data? Well, no. I'm buying it. Sell it to me and let me give you the data. So that was our best setting year ever. Pull this picture up. That picture right there represents being set in 1 part per 1,000 in a river that should be 7 to 8. That's a 3-year-old cluster of oyster. Each bag of shell we dump has 270 shell on average on it. We're putting 2 million larvae in a tank with 100 bushel. I want 5 to 7 animals on a shell. If I plant more on that, like you see in restoration, they grow long and snappy. Not a good shaped oyster. Mine are on bottom. They're cage-free. We have a cage-free, free-range system. We grow them on the bottom. My lease is a historic oyster lease from 1906. It used to belong to the Woodfield family. It is nothing new. We get more heartache from commercial fishermen that think we're taking bottom from them to raise an oyster on. I'm cleaning up the river so society can have, and believe it or not, I get a huge backlash when we're harvesting in the summer from recreational people coming up. My wife said I can't talk to people that way. That the minute I tell them it's not restoration, that it's aquaculture, we get the dirtiest conversations back from them. You as a society are getting the benefit of my money for 3 years. I'm then going to come and strip that whole bar naked and plant it again. And you're going to get my benefit for the next 3 years. I've got another planting from the year before and another planting from the year before. I have 35 acres that's in rotation that I'm constantly harvesting off of. This is success on a time that they didn't. The reason this picture is so exciting to me, and the fact I get to tell real people instead of children where I can't bring this up, this is at a time that they were not going to sell me larvae. It was the best season. If you figure every oyster shell that we put at 270 to the bag and say just 50% of them look like this, and I'm telling you right now, it was more than 50% that looked like this. The bottom of that river was incredible. Please pull out of that.
What's the hard bottom?
Say again.
What's the hard bottom?
If I have to put bottom down, I got the wrong lease. I'm going to waste money in shell and resource. How many of you guys want shell? Who in this room wants shell? Everybody wants shell. There's no indefinite amount of it. And I'm not trying to yell. They got me wired. Well, it's a passionate topic, and I've got a group of people that aren't children that I can actually voice my opinion to on such things. I was asked to leave a governor's office when I was his appointed official for my thought process. And a week later, he was on the news saying exactly my points. And he had 2 state troopers help me out of the office. So I enjoy talking to people that have an interest in what we're talking about. My family works hard for what we do for a living, and we feel we put a very nice product out for the society. Yes, sir. Sure, and I'm working to that. Slowly go down this. Are we in school 3? All right. Are we all the way? Go a little faster. Right here. 2 million larvae. 2 million larvae. We're just under $400 a million. I'm going to put 2 million larvae in a tank of 100 bushel of shell. If you're doing it for a restoration, you're probably going to have half the amount of shell. The shell is the expensive part of this whole operation. Is there a reason I'm louder? Or am I just getting closer? Okay. Oh, that's true. I'll try to tone it down. So we buy this from a hatchery. Go ahead and pull out. No. Yes, no. I'm trying to think that picture. That was the new hatchery in Tillman Island, Ferry Cove. I enjoy their work quite a bit. And if I'm not mistaken, they were put together by nonprofits that got them where they are. Your board of directors may know more. They were put together by nonprofits. We're buying the product to my understanding at what market value is. It's not a subsidy, it's a private entity. I think they were set up by a nonprofit, and the nonprofit stepped back and said, make it work, is my understanding. Now, I could be totally misled on that. On your board, are you familiar? Am I in the neighborhood from what you know? Right, but that, right.
There was a private public part.
Right. And that manager, when he was at ORP, I fight for my shell. I fight tooth and nail for my shell. The state of Maryland will give you money for your shell that I can't give, and that shell is going to go back to Oyster Recovery Partnership. Government money, public money. I'm going to my restaurants that I refuse to sell product to if I don't get my shell. And I'm in direct competition with the state buying that shell. And I had Stefan on the phone one day where they're taking our shell. And he finally was in the argument. I got him and the manager. He's saying, just tell him he won't get the $5 a shell. I said, I'll take the man out to dinner. I said, Stefan, you know where the shell's going. We just want to make sure it goes. We do want to make sure it goes to the right place. Now, I'm picking on Stefan, but Stefan's a good guy. He does a lot of stuff. But the thought process that was going into it at that particular time was problematic. The fight over the public money to buy the shell back where I could not give that, and I needed my shell. Wild Country Seafood, I implore you all to give him his shell back. He cannot give you the product. Every restaurant that he sells to, give their shell to Oyster Recovery Partnership, which he has to buy back from the state of Maryland. We're in direct competition with the state of Maryland. Yes, sir.
What about these concrete?
If they did, every bridge we had would be loaded with them. You know what I find as a diver overboard? The iron on them grows more oysters than the bridges. The rebar sticking out. We just recently got all that garbage from the Patapsco River, all the old dams. Are they loaded with oysters? No, I don't believe in it. I'm not a fan of the reef ball as a item of oyster restoration. It may have its other purposes for mitigating breakwaters or things like this, but to say that its primary purpose is an oyster habitat, I personally don't agree with it. Concrete is not the best substrate. Shell. You talk to anybody in this business up this entire coast or on the West Coast, shell is the biggest product. My small system, we used to use Chesapeake Bay Foundation's tanks at Discovery Village. Originally, those tanks John Flood had down on the Nanticoke River when the first aquaculture remote setting was done. Does anybody here remember when he brought that marl in and went down to the Nanticoke River? Well, those tanks we were fighting to get for the Waterman of South River to set at Discovery Village so we could then generate our own spat-on shell to use on public oyster bar. All that information got switched over. Chesapeake Bay Foundation ended up with the tanks. When COVID came in, we were using them when they didn't have any product to go in them. Their purpose in life was to make spat-on shell. Didn't matter who it was. But during COVID, they stopped letting us use them. And I said, is it because of insurance? I'm insured to the hilt. You know what? They just didn't want to do it. So at that point, I had to drive all the way down to Piney Point to use a tank one year. Our setting levels went down. I used to fill every tank that they had sitting at CBF, one 400 bushel tank and three 300 bushel, and I would fill them multiple times until I could no longer get larvae or I ran out of shell. We used to have that much shell that we would get back from our customers. That is a very expensive operation that they have, and it's now across the creek from us, and I got a kick out of it this year when I got my nursery permit back for Discovery Village, and I have a $3,000 setup that planted more oysters overboard than they did in one season. I have a $3,000 setup. This can be done in a backyard. I did it in the backyard. One of my nursery permits is for my backyard that's totally landlocked. I trucked 2,000 gallons of water every day for the month of August and the first part of all of July and the first part of August. I destroyed a $6,000 trail ferrying salt water every day because that was the option I had at the time. Yes, sir.
How long do the larvae have to be in?
7 days and I'm taking it out and putting it overboard. I don't care to look at it under a microscope. I'm a man that's in business to make money. If that set did not take, it's going to cost me more to pull those out, rip them out of the bags, they got slime on them now. Let them dry, rebag them. We use bags because for our family, it works. You know, it's something we can move and handle. We don't have heavy equipment. Go to the bottom of this and I'll show you my heavy equipment. I have one picture in mind. Go back up. This picture right here. This is my heavy equipment. You can see the thrill in life. We work and pay grown men wages for every kid that's out there that's doing this type of work. They enjoy it. They're getting an experience. And you can tell them to go away and they say, we didn't do anything wrong. Why can't we come back? These are family children. They're nieces, nephews, cousins, relatives that want to get it. We've got firefighters. We've got wounded soldiers. We've got everybody under the sun that wants to come and play. My tanks aren't expensive. They're $1,500 farm stock tanks. One of them is 1,000 gallon, one is 1,500. It's done on a shoestring, as is everything that we do as commercial fishermen. We're not wealthy, and we never will be wealthy. 50% of my income comes from the enjoyment of what we do. This is part of my enjoyment. These kids have a good work ethic, but they go on to do good things. Hold on out of that. We start well. This is in the backyard. If you haven't noticed it, there's no river around. We were successful for 2 years before we got back on the river. The property that we wanted to go back to was in change. It was being sold. So the old owners that would have given it to us nonstop couldn't because it was being sold. When the new owners bought it, it took some time to get stuff ironed out before they would let us get the nursery permit.
So when you're in the backyard, you don't have access to river water. So
I do have access.
you do.
I put it on a trailer on a tank, and I haul 1,000 gallons up the road, 20 minutes each way, 20 minutes to pump it to fill the tank. I do that trip twice a day. Thank you very much. We don't have the best equipment. It took me forever to get $10,000 to buy a Bobcat to move stuff around. We were using a Bobcat that lifted 500 pounds, and trust me, I love that too because it lifted more than I was going to. There are more bidco loans. There are grants. It's not my community's job to fluff my business. Any of the other folks that's their main purpose, in my opinion, it's not business. It's a government entity. We have a co-op that the state pressed, a Waterman's co-op that's also managed by state funds. I'm not allowed to be on it because we had differing views and explained that the money's not there when you start hiring managers and stuff like this. The governor at the time said it is going to happen. So I'm competing directly. I went into the state of Maryland and told them, buy me out. You know, I'm competing with government funds. I should not have to. Yes, sir. Sure. I will continue on the oyster discussion, or I'll change gears, or I'll stop altogether. You guys tell me. It's a lot less than what it was. In the 90s, it dropped down. In the 15s, it was spectacular. Go to new crabs. Which one is that? Go up. I'm looking for a boy in yellow. You'll find there's a boy in yellow, and if it's not, there it is. This one right here. That boy's 40 years old today. I have a picture of us coming out of the eastern shore in the fall with 98 bushel of crabs on my boat in the early 90s. We will never see that again. The bulk of them were females. I think it was 10 bushel of males. That time I was getting $50 a bushel. We made money. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned you have a trot line?
I do.
Which is better?
It's an argument and a knife fight. I know 2 retired police officers that literally got in a knife fight in your river over a trot line lay at 3 o'clock in the morning, a knife fight where they were on their boats fighting with knives. One of them was a retired police officer that's supposed to know how to de-escalate. Where we work is exciting. And I don't mean that in a good way. Everybody feels that they own where they are, and they don't. And the more new people we get coming into this industry that haven't had the respect of, they feel they have more ownership. It is a problem. I'm getting older. I'm getting more feeble. A couple months ago, I couldn't touch my nose. I told my wife I'd like to touch my nose when I'm 10 years older. I've shaked so many crab pots over the past 30 years that my shoulders are a problem. I'm actually thinking I might have to go back to trot lining, and I don't want to because it's an argument. I dredge my private oyster ground in West River, and I come up in the summer because it's all temperature control. I've only got so much time before I have to get those products in or it's garbage. And I've got 5 boats out there that are trot lining on a Saturday for recreation. I need to get to this spot. I can go nowhere else. Where I need to work is here. Nobody comes up to me. I see buoys there and there, and I assume they're going this way and this way. Nobody comes up. I watch the people look at me that know what I'm about to do. I've dropped my dredges. I hooked their line and pulled it up. They still didn't come to me. I pushed it off, and I moved over, and I dredged again. I pulled up the other one. They then finally come to me like, I sat here for 15 minutes. Did you not know what I was going to do? Well, why didn't you come to us? To you, or you? That day, I backed up and said, you need to move. I need to be here. The gear's already done. You know what I'm about to do. I regret that interaction with them to this day. They're people I feel nice about that are never going to have the same feeling. I wasn't a nice person, nor were they. At the end of the day, I left, went over to them when things had simmered down, offered them $100 if there was any damage to their gear. They said there wasn't, but the personality conflicts that arose from it. Trot lining is an argument, and it's an argument that never ends well. I will do it. I used to do heritage tours where we took people out. I will go out after sunrise a half hour with a charter. It is an argument, and it's not one that anybody's going to win in the end. Any other questions? I don't want to take your time. You steer me where you'd like to go. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm interested in how, like, what, so I heard that there's some facts damage genetic design.
And I'm not bringing these up to light for a pity party. I'm bringing up facts of life as to what we experience.
But my question is, what can you do?
Don't feel bashful about calling NRP and telling them that there's a problem or you see something out of color. NRP, we hire them to do a job. Inform them with stuff you see that's off color. If you know where our leases are and you see lights that are on them, call NRP. You don't want to call me. I have no use for a thief, zero. And on our lease, we.
Do they need to be pulling at night, right before dawn type of situation?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Now that the public oyster season is going out, I'm going to go one step further. I got to stay in my box. We have to have a gray book from the state of Maryland that says where we can as an oysterman go legally. In that gray book, all of our West River leases are listed as public oyster rock. Yay. Because we didn't lease the entire historic Yates oyster bar. Mind you, in the state's mentality, we can't plant the entire historic Yates oyster bar, just certain portions of it that we've been planting over the years. So there's a double standard we have there. But now that we have our leases, they got to go to a third-party app, which never works. I'll try to pull it up for you right here tonight before you leave tonight, and I'll tell you it won't work. So people are coming to those, and they're exonerated. All they got to do is move one of our corner marks. We're still antiquated to a 1906 law that the corners, all four corners have to be marked. If they're not marked, one mark's off station, it's not prosecutable.
How many days a year do you get up in the morning, you look at it and say, too bad, I'm not going to.
Where'd my young lady go? There's a picture on here, an average crab potting day, where it's the 40-foot boats getting tossed around. We get the southeasters right now, that pound net on Saunders. Pat drove all the poles on it and pulled all the poles the next day on that southeaster the day after he drove them. He had to go back out and redrive them again. It's wind and weather is a big thing. Eddie Howe's further south, Howe Seafood, Eddie's place, he went through the same thing. He's got much bigger nets out. Some of them are telephone poles. The nets get shredded from the weather. So we've got storms that come through. We try to drop the nets to the bottom if a hurricane's coming or get them out. Crab pots, I pulled my crab pot rig before. It was taking me a week on an impending storm. We're going to watch the weather. Part of our job is a weatherman. We've got to look out 10 days from where we are today. Your question on what can be done, vigilance is all I can say. If you see something out of place and if you know your local community on the river, please call NRP. Come up to us and talk to us. We'll be glad to talk to you and show you what we do. My cards are right here, and if there's not enough of them there for anybody that's interested, touch base with these folks here. I have no problem in showing you what we're doing. You're the ones that are going to help us in the long run, or at least to explain my side when we have differing viewpoints on what's going on. A lot of what I talked about has controversy. Can you open that up totally so I can see it? Some of what I brought up today is controversial. Some of it's not so much. I do believe that we're better off if we can at least acknowledge where we can't get along. And I welcome any discussion on that. Yes, sir.
Well, someone's got to ask this, you've been doing it long enough, do you think this climate change is driving fish and seafood and everything?
We're based on salinity, and right now the drought's more bothering me than you know, the rain, however it's caused from or not caused from. I'm not saying climate, I'm saying our salinity is up. We're in a drought. That drought affects my oysters. I lost 40% of my market oysters last year due to derma. 40% died. High salinity. Too salty. Now, high salinity makes great for recruitment. Your river is not going to get a good recruitment. You're too fresh on average. A good spat set in South River is 12 baby oysters, 12 spat on shell per bushel basket of shell. Down in southern part of the state that used to be our seed grounds, where we would throw shell, take a strike, natural oyster spat set, dredge it up and plant it all over the state. We did that for 65 years until they decided we were transferring dermo. A normal strike down there, a normal spat set is 1,200 babies to the bushel basket. So when I say that our region is not set for a spat set, that's on a good, without conowingo, without our pollution, without the sediment, without the lack of oxygen. And its best days, it's minimal. They're not going to come back on their own. My opinion. And we're a bunch of adults, and I think you guys asked me to come speak my opinion. If you didn't, oops. Yes, ma'am.
Are young people coming in?
No, ma'am.
That's what I think.
People that have other occupations that can come in here and take the cream, coming and taking the cream and going back to their occupation. I compete with the kids that are bow fishing and catching, because the state made recreational people commercial harvesters for the invasive species. They're skinning them. I have tons of licenses. I have a $70,000 kitchen just for filleting and shucking oysters. They're selling stuff on the internet that's not legally. They can catch them and sell them. They can't process them. I'm in competition with them, which I shouldn't be. Yes, ma'am.
Your operation sounds huge.
It's not. It's not.
Nothing, just you.
90%, when I talk a lot of times and say it's me, you know, the director over here said, we used to have a farm when the crabs took a dump, as well as oystering, as well as gill netting for we went back. I'm originally from Howard County, where I grew up. My mom and dad still live in the same house. Howard County, when I got out of the service, is gone. We used to do agriculture. I used to have 6 to 7 working. We used to also have a farm that we were raising 3,000 meat birds. We were the largest turkey producer in Anne Arundel County. We raised 300 meat rabbits, and we had 200 egg-laying chickens. Nobody's going to take care of me. We need to move on and do it. So when the crab population did this, we augmented with this. We had an acre of produce that went to communities that needed food, as well as I have a skiff on here that's called Fat Fred. It's $55,000. I'd love to say that I rebuilt it. It was all just parts and pieces. I'd like to say that Waterman stuff bought that, chickens bought that. But today everybody has antibiotic-free chickens, pasture raised. That market to me dried up. The farm got sold, so we stepped away. I'm getting older, and we were butchering 150 birds every other Wednesday from the end of March to the middle of December. It was too much. So it is, I say we a lot. My wife says, who the hell's in your pocket? The kids, the family, there's lots of people when we plant oysters. You guys are more than welcome to come. When we do this type of stuff, people are interested, and I find myself trying to share and explain because it's what's going to protect us in the long run. It also shows that without these raw materials, we're out of business. To send them just to another group isn't always the best thing to get them redistributed back out. I believe very strongly in private entrepreneurs. I don't believe government should have their hand in everything. So, yes, sir. Yes. The most successful way to harvest snakehead is at night with the lights and a bow and arrow. They don't gill net. They very rarely go in the pound net. They're a docile animal that lives up on the marsh edges that stays there like a dead log. You could reach down and throw a rock at it if you wanted. Not in that, they're not doing that out in the bay because that particular fish is up in the tributaries. It's in your creeks. It's up in Little Round Bay. It's up in Deer Creek. It's up in your creeks. It's not out in the main rivers or the main stem of the bay. No. No, it looks like a gar. It looks more like a gar. It's a long docile fish. It's got very sharp teeth, very slimy, very delicious. The flesh of it is absolutely wonderful. If there were enough of that on the market, we would not have a rockfish market. Yes, sir. Mhm. We dredge it, we pat and tong it, we do lots of other ways to take the stuff off. I try my best. I don't want to leave a dollar behind. I'm a miser. And leave an oyster sitting there, other than I want all that older animal. ORP's project years ago when Larry Sims was the president of MWA, the Chester River, we bar cleaned it. In South River, they wanted to put a managed reserve in there. We pushed them all the way upriver. They wanted to bar clean everything to get the older animals out. It was and is a practice to get the old animals out of.
So if you dredge it, then you replant that with
Not shell. If I put a shell overboard, it's going to have a live animal on it. To plant just shell for a substrate, I've got the wrong bottom. I think you asked that question earlier. If I have to put shell, it's a waste of shell. I got the wrong bottom. To manufacture a piece to grow oysters is wrong business, in my opinion. It's a waste of good product that we don't have enough of.
So then after you dredge, get all the shell,
Dermo's in the water column. When we start getting fresh years, for 18 years of freshet before this 4 years of drought, we couldn't stop growing oysters. Now we're starting to see in the past 4 years because of the drought that Dermo's come further up the Chesapeake Bay. When we get freshet again, if we ever do, that'll recede and go back. The advantage of a high salinity is your recruitment is higher. You get more natural spat set higher up the bay. The problem is it's a double-edged sword. You also have Dermo further up.
and what I'm trying to figure out or understand is that after you dredge it off, is that far then done forever? Or
No.
is it a reprocess?
When I'm through with it and retire and walk away from it,
I think he's worried about what he's thinking is to have a disease population of oysters clear along.
so Harris Creek is a sanctuary they built over there. I've seen videos of it and it's touted as a wonderful thing, three-dimensional. I don't see too much three-dimensional in my personal view, knowing what oysters look like. It looks sparse compared to my oyster ground that we're farming, that we're raising to make a living off of. To me, it seems sparse. I would have liked to have seen much more bulk and built up, much more natural recruitment piling up. We're not. We're still seeing stuff getting sedimented over. The sediment, I think I talked to some folks earlier before we got started. The sediment coming down from the Mohawk River Valley this way, it comes right to us. They open the gates at Conowingo, it comes down. I'm up in West River, it silts over. Everything we have will get sediment on it. 22 years ago, the state took 25% of our most productive oyster bars and turned them into a sanctuary. They haven't worked on but a very fraction of them to rehabilitate them themselves. To me, let us have them back. The most productive oyster bar they took was down in Somerset County. 8 years prior, it was barren bottom and the watermen begged to have that bottom back just to dredge. And the state finally relented and said, yep, there's nothing there, have at it. And they took that 22 years ago, I think it was. That was the best producing oyster bar in the state of Maryland.
So I guess where I was trying to run to recover the bars that had.
From my perspective, I'm going to work it every year and bring the stuff back to the surface. Matter of fact, I'm going to start taking some of my culch back off and rebagging that up. But that costs just as much as if I had to buy it. So I'm trading labor for shell as opposed to getting my shell back. I encourage everyone in this room, if you're buying an oyster to eat, put that shell, that culch back in the production of making a food, not in making a sanctuary. There's other, get our scientists and biologists in our schools learning what another substrate can be instead of being in production. Mm-hmm. Anyone? Yes, sir.
The boat that you bought in '94, can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's a Gene Travis built boat. It's the last boat that he built. I joined the service in December 8th, 1984 on a Thursday. On Monday, I was in San Diego. And there, I think I'm 28 in that picture. That is Patricia. Nope, that is Patricia Ann right there. It's one of my nieces. She worked with me on the boat so much. She has 2 children of her own now. That boat was named after her. It's a Hoops Island style boat. It's white cedar over oak. I have a little bit of fiberglass as a raincoat on the top. I've got stainless steel metal covering the bottom so I can work in the wintertime. the stainless actually destroys the boat because fresh water gets behind it, and that's where electrolysis happens. I looked at 100 boats from Delaware to Norfolk. This was actually the 4th boat I looked at, told the man I wasn't interested. I came back after that 100th boat and handed him a cashier's check. And I took it home and spent 10, 15 grand on it just in maintenance. And it was a year later before I realized it was that same boat I told a buddy of mine I'd owned that week before I went in the service. I'd be hard pressed to get rid of it. I've rebuilt I've put 2 transom in it, 3 houses, half the bottom. I'm tied up at Discovery Village where they just put in a wonderful boat ramp. I've got a hole in the side of my boat because somebody came in a sea-doo and used my boat to stop their boat. And not a single note, not a single person. I have a problem with morality. I have a problem with people not feeling that their actions have an accountable. I have to haul that boat and do a repair. I've got to pull apart a lot of wood to fix that. Today in the winter months, it's not a big deal, but when I go to plant that boat, I'm going to sink it below that name. One of the things I use for talking to children to bring math into it is about my boat weighs 5 tons. It can carry 10 tons. Another way of saying 10 tons is 20,000 pounds. For every 1,000 pounds of weight I put in that boat, it sinks 1 inch. If I load it to its full capacity, how deep in the Chesapeake Bay will it sink? That's 10 tons. When I load this boat heavy with oysters that we're planting, I'm putting 13 tons on it. I have water over top of the main decks. The only thing keeping it out is the washboard. That's a tough boat. We do all the maintenance to make sure it's a tough boat. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me talk. I have my own opinions, and I hope they didn't brush anybody wrong.